Now, her opportunity to retain the short course championship took place 2 weekends ago in Canada, a place called Kelowna. With her, now that weekend, were a full New Zealand women's team and men of the calibre of Rick Wells, Brett Marshall and also the veteran John Hellemans. Against them, some well-credentialed competitors.
British Columbia, Canada, site at the 1988 Reebok World Triathlon Championships. A 1.5-kilometer swim in Lake Okanagan, followed by a 40-kilometer bicycle course, finishing with a grueling, flat-out 10-kilometer run for the prize money. It's a typical August day in the Okanagan, hot and clear. The athletes are waiting on the starting line for the swim to begin, and we have a very, very large field of top men professional and female professional athletes here today.
We certainly do, and included in that field today, we're going to have the defending world champion, Richard Wells of New Zealand. He's the man we're going to expect to be out there after the swim. He's the man who won Nice last year, and also Scott Molina, the man known as the Terminator. He's won here in Kelowna the past 2 years in the Kelowna Apple Triathlon. Also in the field, Scott Tinley, the man who was first in the New Zealand Ironman this year and second in Japan. And Mike Pigg, the reigning USTS national champion. He's the man they all fear and the pre-race favorite. He's only lost a couple of races in the past year, and one of those was to this man, Stephen Foster of Australia, who won a couple of weeks ago in Chicago. Also in the field, we do have the 5-time world champion, Mark Allen, who won last weekend in Vancouver at the Vancouver International Triathlon, beating Pigg by just 18 seconds. And the women's winner of that race, Erin Baker, racing for the first time in Canada. She raced a few weeks ago in Provo, Utah, her first race in North America, but she lost that race to Sylviane Pontus, one of the Pontus twins. Sylviane and Patricia have won 25 races over the past few years, including the Ironman, where they placed 1 and 2 in 1984 and 85. Colleen Cannon also in the field. Colleen Cannon second in Vancouver last weekend, but this lady has won in Nice before in the World Championships in 1984.
Thanks, Stephen. We're ready at the starting line now for the start of this race. We have about 600 racers ready to go.
And that includes 40 men in the professional category and 25 women. And let's not forget, they're not only vying for the prestige of the World Championships, but also over $50,000 in prize money.
And they're off as the pro men start the swimming leg of the Reebok World Triathlon Championships in Kelowna. Now, Stephen, this is just the first of 4 wave starts. How do they work?
What's happening is the men are going off first, then 2 minutes later the professional women. That's so that some of the women don't get an unfair advantage by drafting off the professional men. After them will come the age groupers.
All right, now let's have a look at our course today. Starting from the beach of the Kelowna City Park, we've got a 1.5-kilometer swim, 625 meters out to the first buoy, 250 meters across, and then 625 meters back to the shore and into the transition area. Then it's out on the bike. We've got 40 kilometers here under the hot Okanagan sun. The course is a gentle uphill grade, not too many steep pitches, not too many turns. Coming back is a long downhill section. We can expect to see some big speeds on this course. Back to the transition area and then out on the run. The run is mostly through Kelowna residential areas, a lot of short, fast stretches. Mark Allen says it will be a very technical course, and it ends with a spectacular sprint through the streets of Kelowna for the finish line.
Spearheading the field right now in the swim is the defending world champion, Richard Wells of New Zealand. He's the man who came out first with David Kirk of Kelowna in the Kelowna Apple Triathlon here last year. However, we understand that Richard is suffering somewhat from a virus, and we did manage to have a word with him prior to the race.
I want to go into that race feeling 100%, not, 85%, give it my best shot, I don't mind being beaten, but I'd like to know that I've given it my 100%.
And now the women pros are entering the water ready for their start. They'll be taking off 2 minutes behind the men.
And you can see most of them are wearing wetsuits indeed. That should be a very fast swim from these ladies, but that 2 minutes will keep it honest.
And they're off.
That's a really good picture we're getting there from the rear of the swimmers. You can see they're really setting off a fast pace, and you can see already there's someone out there spearheading, and we'll see a lot of drafting in the swim. Of course, it's legal in the swim. And back to our leaders in the men's group, though, you can see Our leader there, Richard Wells, still out in front, but only a couple of metres behind him, and drafting off him is Brett Marshall, a fellow New Zealander, and in third place there is Simon Cassidy from Vancouver. And Simon had a really good race last weekend when he competed in VIT, was the first Canadian to finish. Here we see the second pack of the professionals rounding a buoy. Some of them a little tight on the turn there. They'll lose a few precious seconds, but they're looking up, getting their sighting.
That's right, Stephen. They're swimming straight into the sun, and it's hard to see the finish line, but this year they have the paddleboard to follow.
In the women's race, the group of four have broken away. They're headed by Carol Pickard of Australia, followed by Zena Herman, Shannon Delaney, and from Kelowna in fourth place there, Joanne Ritchie. And there is Les McDonald, the president of Triathlon Canada, who was able to tell us about the International Olympic Committee's interest in the sport of triathlon.
The initiative in this case has come not from the triathlon community to the IOC, but has come directly from Juan Samaranch himself, who, of course, is the president of the IOC. What it also means to, certainly to me, is why would they do that? Why? Because the triathlon is such a huge growth sport like no other. They want the triathlon into the Olympics. It's not the other way around. We haven't gone there cap in hand. They've asked us. That's what's dramatic, and that's what's exciting about it.
All right, Stephen, we're in the finish zone of the men's swim leg. Who's this coming out of the water?
It looks like it's Richard Wells, the defending champion. He's coming out 17.5 minutes, but just behind him his fellow countryman, Brett Marshall there. These guys are going for the preems.
And here's Mike Pigg.
He's in the second group. They're about 50 seconds behind our top three men there, but he'll make up a lot of time on the bike. There's another group there. They're coming out around 19 minutes.
And this is an area where they will be able to try to make up some time. This is the transition area where they take off their wetsuits, get on their bikes. The shoes are already locked into the pedals. They head out. Here's Scott Molina.
And just opposite Scott, you can see there the man going out on the bike, Stephen Foster, the Australian champion. But Scott Molina seems to be taking his time somewhat. We must remember that the transition area is in fact the fourth discipline when it comes to a triathlon. These triathletes practice hard at this to cut down every second possible. Out in the lead now, you see the New Zealander there, Brett Marshall. He's pulling away on the bike, looking very good. He's settled down in the aerodynamic position, but back to the ladies in the swim. You can see coming out of the swim in front there is Carol Pickard, the Australian. Behind her, Zena Herman in second place. And their time, just over 19 minutes, a phenomenal time. In third place is Shannon Delaney, just coming into view there, and you may have heard some people yelling, "Come on, Joanne," because in fourth place, just seconds behind these three ladies, is the local triathlete Joanne Ritchie, doing extremely well at this point.
And Carol Pickard now moving quickly in the transition area. She's first out on the bike.
But back with the men, you see the man at the top of your screen there is Mike Pigg, making his way through the field. He came out of the water in 7th place. He's now gone into 6th position.
Out in front, Brett Marshall is still hanging on, but you can see Pigg coming up behind him. Stephen, Pigg is amazing. The power of this man. Look at him clear him out.
He certainly is. He's devastating on the bike. In fact, in the recent America's Paradise Triathlon in St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands, he put 9.5 minutes between him and the chasing group.
Well, Mike Pigg has one thing less to worry about now. We've just heard the defending champion, Richard Wells, has dropped out of the race. Apparently that chest infection was just too much.
And there is Stephen Foster from Australia, the Aussie champion and the man who placed in the top 3 in the Vancouver International Triathlon last week. He's just taken Brett Marshall too. He's a man they're going to fear out there. The Australian's #1. But out front, Mike Pigg. Look at him go. There's the chasing group, the second pack there. Few meters aside of each other. Don't forget they've got to watch out for any drafting infractions.
And here's Joanne Ritchie. She's looking strong here. She's already out in front of Erin Baker. She must have, what, a minute on her by now?
I think she has, but this is a big surprise. Don't forget, Joanne's been out of the sport for over 2 years. She's had a baby. We haven't seen much of her. She's been training hard, but I'm really surprised to see her ahead of this lady, the 1987 world champion, Erin Baker. She's in phenomenal form. Just last weekend, she tore the field apart in Vancouver. But here comes Joanne Ritchie. Kelowna's going to be very happy about this one.
But Erin's coming up hard behind her. Erin makes it look easy. This woman is powerful. Don't be fooled by it. She's tough.
And also Colleen Cannon, we saw her last week in Vancouver. She placed second there to Erin Baker, and in fact she was in third place in the Provo, Utah triathlon that Erin came second in. And first in that race was Sylviane Pontus, but now they've already made the turn on the bike, so they're heading back towards the park and the transition area. Mike Pigg out front, Mark Allen number 2, and in third place right now, the man you see here, Ken Glar from Westchester, Pennsylvania.
Just an amazing display here of power and skill by Mike Pigg, and he's got to have stretched his lead out well past a minute by now, Steve.
It looks like he has, and these two men you see now have broken away from the chasing group. That is Mark Allen up top, and next to him we see Kenny Glar, a member of the Foxcatcher team. We saw these two in Vancouver last weekend. Mark Allen won, Kenny Glar third. The man in second place was the man leading presently. That's Mike Pigg. But understand there's a real titanic struggle now going on in the ladies' race between Joanne Ritchie, who you see there, and Erin Baker in second place.
Stephen, Joanne's been training hard, but I don't think anybody expected she'd be doing quite as well as this at this stage in the race. It's incredible.
It certainly is. But there's a great battle taking place in the chasing group. There's Glenn Cook from England, the European short course champion. John Hillerman from New Zealand there. And there's Stephen Foster of Australia, the man who beat Pigg in Chicago a couple of weeks ago. Just ahead of him, Scott Tinley on the right, and Brad Kearns, one of the world's top biathletes, on the left. Just ahead of them, we have a few more men. There on the right, you see Richard Brown, Canada's leading triathlete at this point. There's Kenny Glar. To the left of Kenny, we have Mark Allen. So you can see Mike Pigg again checking out the time that he's got between him and that chasing pack. But he's well clear now. We understand it's almost a minute and a half he's got ahead. So some phenomenal biking here. Mike Pigg has done about 55 minutes before on a 40-kilometer course, and here he comes into the transition area.
Pigg has got a total time on the course of 1 hour, 14 minutes and 36 seconds. He's done very well on the bike.
He certainly has. That breaks down to a 55-minute and 26-second split for the 40K bike portion. That's averaging over 27 miles an hour. But look how quickly he's changing into his running shoes. He'll get rid of that cycling helmet, and he's off and running already with 10Ks of running ahead of him. But he'll be asking the question, just how far are those guys behind him? We will see them very soon.
And here they are. It's an incredible crush. There must be about 10 riders all packed in here. They're running about a minute and a half behind Mike Pigg, and they're pushing hard.
And here come our first two ladies. It's Erin Baker and Joanne Ritchie. Just meters separating the two of them. They come in with an overall time, 1:23 minutes plus. Back to our leading man. It is Mike Pigg striding away out there. He knows he's got a minute and a half on these two men, Glenn Cook and Mark Allen. But we can see Joanne Ritchie, the lady who's in second place, taking on some refreshment. She's losing a little ground on the run. It's the worst of her three disciplines, but I think she can hang on. She's a very tough lady mentally and physically. But I understand, Morris, that Sylviane Pontus is catching up.
She's pushing hard, Stephen, but she's got a big deficit, 2.5 minutes to make up here. Running a strong fourth now is Colleen Cannon, but she's going to have to find some major reserves if she's going to have any chance of catching the front runners at this point. And running fifth at the turnaround, about a minute behind her sister, is Patricia Pontus. Trailing her is Susan Slagle from Mercer Island in sixth place.
We are now within the last quarter mile of this race, and battling out in second and third places we have Mark Allen and Stephen Foster. But there's our leader, Mike Pigg. He's looking behind him to see the distance between him and Allen. He thinks he's got it in the bag. I think he knows what he has to do to win this one today. But here you can see the battle between these two in second and third places. They've been running sub 32 minutes for this final 10 kilometers. Looking behind, and there's Glenn Cook in fourth place.
And Mike Pigg still pushing hard in the final seconds of this race. He knows he can't let them get any closer.
the 1988 World Short Course Champion here in Kelowna is number 3, Mike Pigg from California, with Mark Allen in second place, and here he comes up to the line. There's Mike Pigg, Mark Allen and Stephen Foster, but here comes our winner, the St. Clair champion. He's taken it all today, 147.23 unofficially, and here comes Mark Allen popping down the line. This is the man known as the Clip, the man who won the BIT last weekend, the 5-time Nice World Champion, being chased all the way to the line by Stephen Foster of Australia. Way to go, Steve. Mark Allen just finishes 147.41, 147.44 for Stephen Foster. And here comes Glenn Cook of England, the first European to be finishing here at the World Championships from London, England. Glenn Cook, the European Short Course Champion, 147.56 unofficially. Coming in now, number 11, this is Kenny Clark from Westchester, Pennsylvania, member of the Fox Scouts team. First in Guatemala, first in Mexico, first in Israel, and 5th place here today in Kelowna at the World Champions. And here comes the First Lady, who's going to be the 1988 Reebok World Short Course Triathlon Champion. It is the 1987 champion with a repeat performance, Erin Baker from Christchurch, New Zealand. Let's hear it for her. Ranked number 1 in the world, the winner of Ironman, 9:35 was her time. First in Vancouver last weekend, first in Nice, second in Provo. Here she comes up, hits the line, 2:01.31 unofficially for Erin Baker of New Zealand. Here comes Joanne Ritchie. Way to go, Joanne. Tremendous job, isn't it great? You've got a number 2 in the world right now, coming up to the line, Joanne Ritchie. Tremendous job here from Joanne. Way to go. Kelowna must be very pleased with it. Just ahead of Joanne, Rock Bry from Stony Plain, Alberta. Joanne's time, 2:03.22. And her husband there just takes her in his arms. He is a very proud man. Way to go, Joanne. What a performance. She is absolutely delighted. Second to Erin Baker.
What made the difference today?
Getting away quickly on the bike.
Who pushed you the hardest today?
Joanne Ritchie, you know. I didn't know who she was. Unbelievable. I mean, she's got a child. Incredible.
Mike, before the race, you said you were going to try out some new strategy to beat Mark this weekend.
Well, it wasn't really new strategies, just go back to the old game plan. Last week in Vancouver, you know, I wanted to see if I could run with him, so I stayed more relaxed on the bike and see how I could run. And I found out Mark's still a faster runner, so I had to go back to the old Pigg power plan and just biking your brains out and hope you got enough and run.
Incredible performances here today, Stephen.
They certainly were, and our women's winner, Erin Baker, with the first sub-2-hour clocking for a woman, 1:59.33. In second place, Joanne Ritchie, 2:01.24. And in third place, Sylviane Pontus, 2:02.42.
And a tight battle for the men. Mike Pigg, of course, the champion, 1:47.26. In second place, Mark Allen at 1:47.42. And in third place, Stephen Foster at 1:47.47. So from Kelowna, British Columbia, Canada,
I'm Steve King.
and I'm Morris Bridge, and this has been the 1988 Reebok World Triathlon Championships.
So a superb effort there again by Erin Baker. No wonder she's the best in the world. Unfortunate for Rick Wells, but a good performance there by John Hallemans. Hope you enjoyed the special coverage of the short course triathlon. Well, still to come in Sunday.